So then, of course, I said you're a queer acupuncturist, and I know you focus a lot on LGBT QIA plus health. Um, Tell us, what are the kinds of ways that Chinese medicine or acupuncture is designed to truly help people in the queer community?
Yeah, it's that's a very broad question.
Like so much of it, so I would love for you to just go for gold and let it flow in. I'll bounce off you where I need to.
So it's I guess I'd premise it by saying it's not the a person's sexuality and their gender identity forms sort of part of the overall picture. So
Right.
I it wouldn't ever sort of be the the be all and end all of why someone would be coming to see me, or even if they thought it would, most of the time it's not. Simply because Chinese medicine operates from a system of holism. So, from our perspective, where Western medicine tends to zoom in on a problem and take a very microscopic look and identify to a minute detail what's happening in terms of a disease process, we tend to take the opposite approach. So,
Welcome to the Queer Quest podcast, your beacon of light and sprinkle of glitter in the queer community. I'm your host, Cristiano Green, CEO and founder of Queer Quest and a transformation coach for queer individuals. And together, we are embarking on a journey of transformation. Each week, we bring you a new training topic or connecting with visionary queer leaders in healing and coaching, diving deep into conversations that inspire growth, celebrate diversity, and empower you to live authentically. So wherever you are, settle in and let's get ready to unlock the vibrant potential within. This is where your quest begins. Hello, all you fabulous souls, and welcome to another episode of the Queer Quest podcast. I'm your host, Cristiano Green, the CEO and founder of Queer Quest and a transformation coach for people in the queer community. So this week on the podcast, we have a very special guest. Now, of course, we know that the Queer Quest podcast is all things people in the queer community, and we cover things across all areas of personal development and wellness. And we do have a queer wellness expert in the house today. We've got Matthew Young, who is a queer acupuncturist in Melbourne, Australia. How you doing, Matthew?
very well, thank you. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for coming on the podcast. And we're going to have a different conversation to maybe some of the other ones that we've had, but I'm excited to share this with our audience.
Yeah, so am I. Thank you for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. So I'd love to maybe start with, you're a queer acupuncturist, of course, but, usually, like I said, when someone gets into a field, they usually had some sort of journey of maybe going through acupuncturist or something. For example, a therapist usually has gone through therapy. So I'd love to hear from you. What got you as a queer person into the field of Chinese medicine of acupuncture?
Yeah, great question. I didn't sort of find a connection to acupuncture till I was in my early 20s. Um, I had, as you know, quite a lot of queer people do, I had my trials over my teenage years in terms of not really understanding who I was, facing discrimination. I grew up in a very small town in New Zealand, so had the lovely experience of not having a great support network around me in that respect.
Yeah.
Uh, so I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of anger, a lot of emotion that I didn't feel inherently comfortable about feeling or particularly comfortable about expressing either. So through various modalities, I obviously had a really wonderful psychologist that was helping me out, but I wanted to explore how I could sort of get a better understanding of what this all meant. So in terms of a connection to myself, emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of these different aspects. And that's sort of what brought me to Chinese medicine. So I ended up finding an acupuncturist after doing a little bit of research. And it just blew my mind a little bit because he was just having a bit of a chat to me. I wasn't being overly, I guess I wasn't being disclosing a great deal of information to him. but he was having a feel of my pulse and all these diagnostic tools that they use, and asking me some very weird, unrelated questions, and was just like, "Oh, you've got a lot of like quite repressed anger in there, haven't you?" And I'm like, "Funny you should say that." And it just sort of it blew my mind. I'm like, okay, this is really odd that this person's managing to get this much information straight away.
Yeah.
And gave me this acupuncture treatment, my first one, and the results were pretty mind blowing for me. I had a few days where as I walked out, he said, "You might feel, quite pissed off and angry for a few days, and that's really normal that we're bringing these sort of things up for you." And yeah, over the next few days, I was really angry, but following on from that, I started to feel significantly better. So I was really intrigued by it, and I always knew that I wanted to involve myself in the LGBT plus community in some way. Healthcare had always felt like a natural kind of calling, but I wasn't really necessarily sold in terms of going the Western route. I'd watched my mum as a nurse practice for 27 years or so and just watched her completely burn out. It wasn't the route that I wanted to necessarily go down.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to support people in more than just one area. So I looked into psychology and helping people from a mental health perspective. But I was also really intrigued by the fact of you've got a system of medicine that can treat people physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually all in this kind of one modality. And I found that really fascinating. So it's sort of what led me down into studying.
Wow, what a journey you went through. And so how, like, for you personally, obviously you had that session where you released the anger, but for you to kind of get to a place where like you felt you could notice seriously feeling better and like that this was something, like how many kinds of sessions did you go through? Or was like one good enough for you to really feel like a huge difference? Like talk about kind of like that for yourself as well.
For me personally, it was over a period of, I would say, probably about 3 to 6 months where I was doing it a little bit more intensively, that I noticed kind of those shifts that begin to happen in that particular way. Um, from there, it's just, I get basically what I would call like a tune up. It's though every 1 to 2 months, I'll get basically a bit of a tune up. So it's just making sure that the systems are ticking along. Um, just to make sure you're not falling into basically what we would say in Chinese medicine, we call them patterns, or patterns of disharmony is probably the best way I could word it. Um, it's our understanding of how particular symptoms come up in the body. So yeah, for me personally, it was around 3 to 6 months to see substantial kind of shifts in that. Um, but yeah, I still need a tune up every now and again, as we all do.
Well, see, we all still go through certain emotional experiences in our life, or things that trigger us. And as you said, going through and getting the tune up helps kind of keep you on the right path, but also know that like that can help as in release some of the stored emotions that are in your body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So then, of course, I said you're a queer acupuncturist, and I know you focus a lot on LGBT QIA plus health. Tell us, what are the kinds of ways that Chinese medicine or acupuncture is designed to truly help people in the queer community?
Yeah, that's a very broad question.
Like so much of it, so I would love for you to just go for gold and let it flow in. I'll bounce off you where I need to.
So it's I guess I'd premise it by saying it's not the a person's sexuality and their gender identity forms sort of part of the overall picture. So
Right.
I I wouldn't ever sort of be the the be all and end all of why someone would be coming to see me, or even if they thought it would, most of the time it's not. Simply because Chinese medicine operates from a system of holism. So from our perspective, where Western medicine tends to zoom in on a problem and take a very microscopic look, and identify to a minute detail what's happening in terms of a disease process, we tend to take the opposite approach. So where I see a symptom occurring within the body that someone's talking about, be it insomnia, be it stress or anxiety or whatever it happens to be, we like to zoom out instead. So I can only understand what's happening within the body by understanding the body systems as a whole and understanding the part in relation to the whole organism that is your body, and also the environment around you as well. So for when I'm treating any queer person, that's very it gives me a lot of information about what that person's experience within the world might be and how that's sort of informing what's happening within their body. So if they're, coming to me for anxiety, it's what underlying emotional processes are occurring that have created a situation that this is how it's manifesting, that you're anxious and your heart's constantly racing and you can't sleep at night. There has to be underlying processes that have fed this, so to speak. So,
So, instead of, like I said, you said in Western medicine, how they're like, you've got anxiety. Okay, well, we'll give you this medication for anxiety, whatever it is, to cure the symptom. We're looking back holistically at the person and say, okay, you're having anxiety. What part of your life is it coming from? Is it coming from like in your relationship stuff, or are you having anxiety around your career or your finances? And then is that causing you to have the emotional trigger? Is it affecting your mental health, affecting your physical health, affecting you spiritually? Where are you aligned? And then from there, you can then go on and figure out the best way to, I guess, approach healing or growth or transformation in overcoming whatever the issue is. That's kind of
so exactly. Yeah, exactly right. And that's sort of where, you find a lot of queer people have very similar experiences or emotional processes that tend to inform the body in a way that I have an understanding through my studies and through my experience in terms of what those mechanisms tend to do to the body. So you see a lot of people coming in with feelings of guilt or shame or repression or self-loathing, all of these sort of really deep set intrinsic beliefs that
self-worth, yeah, things like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of call it a common shared experience that not all, but a lot of queer people tend to experience because, regardless of the upbringing that you've had and the supportive networks that you've had around you, unfortunately, we all inherit
The universal or the society has, yeah, we all have to deal with it since no matter where you grow up, right? You have to face
exactly.
some sort of discrimination or homophobia, queerphobia, transphobia, whatever it is specifically to you. So there is that shared experience of understanding what it's like to feel like an other in the world that is necessarily not being created for us to thrive at our best.
Yeah, exactly. So I got really interested while I was studying by as a queer person, kind of going, how do I fit into this paradigm of medicine? What does that sort of mean? And I remember being in one of my lectures during the first year, and my lecturer turned around and we were talking about a particular kind of particular pattern that we see happen in the body. And one of the causes of this particular pattern was excessive sexual activity. And that was kind of it. It was just like excessive. And I'm like, okay, so what does that actually mean? Yeah. Like that's such a like obscure kind of concept of just saying excessive sexual activity. So I kind of dug a little bit deeper with that, and it was basically came with a very loaded sort of cisgender male orientated kind of answer, which was basically like, oh, you're ejaculating too much. That's what excessive sexual activity means, essentially, that can lead to this particular form of disharmony. And
what is
that's where I
kind of just to maybe go a bit deeper into that, because there's probably going to be people that might again have sex addictions, porn addictions, or just utilize things to help them with their feelings of loneliness, whatever, right? Like it happens. It's not an uncommon thing, especially here in 2025. So tell us a little bit more about that specific thing there so that maybe people can understand, like, hang on, am I having some of that disharmony, right?
So when we look at, if we're looking at sexual activity or what we would classify as excessive sexual activity, it has to be basically understood in relation to other things that are occurring within the body. So like all things, and this is where some people can get a little bit frustrated with how Chinese medicine works, because we say, in most cases, how long's a piece of string? So the excess of sexual activity for one person is not going to be the excess of sexual activity of another person. We can only, again, sort of understand that contextually. So what I tend to look out for is we basically say that my understanding of it through my training and my expertise is basically you're looking for accompanying symptoms that people can identify to say that we're overly taxing our sexual reserve, so to speak. So in Chinese medicine, we call it Jing or essence, which is basically like a finite resource that you've inherited from your parents. So we look at sperm or eggs as basically a manifestation physically of this, hence why they would say over ejaculation is draining this particular resource. But essentially, we look at it as it's a manifestation of the kidney organ in Chinese medicine. Kidney organ is all about growth and reproduction within the Chinese medicine paradigm, less to do with the physical fixed organ as, we would identify it in Western understanding. So other symptoms that we see often with a lack of kidney is we see a lot of lower back problems. So we see a lot of lower back pain. We see a lot of knee pain, ankle pain, and also see a lot of dizziness. It can also get to a point where you see a lot of fatigue as well. So in most cases, if someone's having a healthy sex life and it's not overtaxing, we won't see those kind of accompanying signs. But if someone comes to me and it's like, oh, they've got a new girlfriend, they've got a new boyfriend, whatever, and, I'm just really, really tired and my lower back, I've been to the osteo, but it's not really working. Like it just feels really weak. And I tried to do some squats in the gym and I felt like I threw it out. I'm like, yeah, okay, you're really overdoing it. Just need to, back off a little bit here. So it's gonna be very, again, contextual to the person and only understood, I guess, in context to the overall picture of their health.
That's a good way of looking at it and realizing, like I said, it's not like I said, the problems that you're having, taking the step back and actually looking at it holistically, realizing that, okay, are you doing something in a different area that's affecting all these things, which then becomes the source of the real problem and how you can solve it holistically through Chinese medicine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Okay. I bet that there's probably a bazillion different scenarios that could come for us to look at because, again, I know this has been around for, I don't know if it's centuries or even further back, but how long is that?
About 4,500 years.
Wow, a lot more than centuries.
So yeah. So quite substantial.
Oh, so I know when it comes to Chinese medicine, there's a heavy focus on like the yin and the yang. Can you talk to us in relation to that? I guess maybe from a queer perspective, do you have some sort of like understanding around the yin and the yang so that like someone outside of that would hear it and go, how does that relate to me as a queer person? Especially
Yeah, I think it's a really important concept, and it's one that I think is really helpful in terms of being able to put issues around sexual orientation or gender, our modern understanding of that within a very ancient concept. So it's actually you'll hear a lot of people turn around and kind of look at yin and yang as a binary sort of thing. So because of those being opposite forces, so, the light, the dark, the masculine, the feminine, the hot, the cold, as these opposing kind of forces. which in a way is correct because they are the opposing forces. But if you look at the symbol itself, if it was purely binary, it would just essentially be a circle with a line drawn down the middle, one black side, one white side, and that would be sort of it. But if you look at the actual symbolism of it, they're shaped like teardrops. And then in the center of each of those teardrops, you've got a smaller circle of the opposite color. And this is really important because the yin and yang is never static, which is why it has those teardrop shapes. So it's basically a constant fluctuation of these energies. They never stop moving. And those two circles within each other are really important as well, because it's saying that even in the most yang situation, there's a little bit of yin there and vice versa. So like the day-night cycle is a really good example of that. So you've got the yang, which is hot and warm, so it's the daytime. The yin is cooler, darker, nighttime. But even at midnight, that's the most yin you could possibly get. But the second it hits midnight, it's automatically transitioning back to yang. It's going back into morning, to heat, to daylight. So we look at this as kind of an understanding of gender as well. That gender is not something that's inherently fixed, or with sexuality as well, that these aren't fixed concepts. There's a constant interplay. So even within something that you would look at being as overtly masculine, there's an element of femininity and vice versa, that we're not these fixed elements that have to tick a box or fit into one narrow understanding. There is a constant shift, and this can be, giant shifts throughout our life. It can be a shift of our gender expression throughout the day. It doesn't really mean much in terms of the significance of that. The important part to us is that these two polar opposites rely on each other in order for us to understand them and constantly transform into each other.
And they don't work against each other, they work with each other, I'm assuming, right?
Absolutely. And when they are sort of working again, even in instances where you find that within the body there's an imbalance between them, there's constantly working towards rebalancing each other. The body innately knows that it needs to move towards a state of balance. But I mean, obviously, unfortunately, the lives that we lead and the environment around us means that there's never one kind of space where it's consistently static. It's you just constantly have to try and strive for balance.
Strive for balance, strive for freedom from the need for it to be 50-50 as well, right? We look at everything in our relationships with other people. They're never 50-50. Sometimes you're giving a lot more and vice versa, right? Depends on what's happening in life across every aspect. It happens again for you in your career, in your finances, in your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual side, right? Are you ready to embark on a journey of transformation that's uniquely yours? Welcome to QueerQuest, the world's first and best personal development platform created by and for the queer community. Imagine a space where your authenticity isn't just accepted, it's celebrated. A place where you can grow, learn, and thrive alongside a vibrant community that understands you. At QueerQuest, we're more than just a platform. We're a family. Connect with like-minded individuals, share your stories, and empower each other to reach new heights. Our tailored courses are designed to address the unique experiences of the queer community, from self-love and confidence building to career advancement and beyond. We've got you covered. It's time to step into your power and transform your journey. Join us today at courses.queerquest.vip, see what we're all about, and sign up to begin your quest. Right? If we are constantly wanting it to be completely balanced, then that desire for it to be balanced is also sometimes putting us off balance as well, I think, at times. So that's why
Exactly.
try to work with it, allow it to be what it needs to be in that moment, but also know that when it swings the other way, it's totally okay. Same with your agenda or your sexuality. The people who are repressing those things the most are probably realizing that they're maybe having some different symptoms in the body. So can you talk about, say, what things people could experience if they are repressing parts of themselves, whether it's the sexuality or their gender expression? What kind of shows up at when you look at it from a perspective of Chinese medicine?
So it all sort of it takes on different forms as it sort of evolves. So you kind of look at it as one, it's a bit of like a domino effect. So things will tend to start tipping as one tip. So you start to see multiple patterns evolve. But if you're talking specifically about if people are experiencing significant repression of their gender or their sexuality, what we see what we would call in Chinese medicine stagnation. So lack of movement, lack of potential, we see stagnation manifest physically, but it also can manifest emotionally and spiritually as well. And a lot of the symptoms that you would experience with that are very telling. So a lot of the time in the initial stages of that, I see if it's very early on, it's a lot of muscular tension. So particularly jaw, neck, upper shoulders, that sort of thing. That's a very, very common physical reaction to that repression. As we move down the track, you tend to find that intensifies. So it's that kind of tension in the body that can't be resolved no matter what you do. So you go and get a massage, feel good for maybe a day or two, and then it doesn't really go anywhere. And while this is happening, it's kind of throwing off other systems as well. So when one stagnation is present, it tends to start affecting other systems in the body as well. So it might mean that you start having really a lot of period irregularities and PMS. It can start to affect our digestive system as well. So a lot of bloating, IBS type symptoms start affecting sleep quality, anxiety. So it has these flow-on effects as well. But at its core, when we see repression, we just see a significant lack of movement within the body. So we say physical, mental, emotional tension. So spiritually, a lot of the time, these people feel very stuck, have a lot of difficulty with moving forward and goal setting. And then emotionally, yeah, it's a lot of tension, can verge into rage, anger, those sorts of things. So yeah, we see it as a significant impact in the capacity for movement within the body. Particularly initially, we say qi. So qi loosely translates as energy, but qi is kind of responsible for any physical, emotional process that's occurring within the body. So qi drives thought, breathing, heart rate, metabolism, digestion, movement, your immune system. All of these in Chinese medicine are connected to qi. Drives process and physiology within the body. So it's a lack of movement of that qi. Things aren't moving where they're meant to go.
Things are blocked in the body, things are stagnant. And so then, can you walk us through how acupuncture can help someone who is dealing with, I guess, a myriad of things like they're coming to? What does it do to the chi, to the blockage, to the person who's stuck, who feels like they can't? Like, how does acupuncture or Chinese medicine actually help someone specifically?
So if you're looking specifically at acupuncture, so acupuncture operates off what we call meridians. Or so some people call them channels. Basically, the best way I can explain it is essentially they're pathways that run through the body. So they're responsible for transporting what we would say is information, messages, so chi basically, or energy, whatever you want to call it, and blood as well. So blood in Chinese medicine is a little bit broader than your physical blood. For us, it's an understanding of underlying support, nutrition, heavier substances that are supporting basically any physical process that's in the body. So it's what keeps, your hair nice and lusterful so that it's not falling out. Your skin, has patency to it, that your eyes have enough blood so they can see clearly, like all of these sort of nutritive processes. So you can kind of think of the meridian like a combination almost between a nerve and a blood vessel, transporting substance and information around the body. When we're using acupuncture, we're using a very fine needle, which we're inserting into a specific point along this meridian. And basically, each point within the body, we have essentially around 400 baseline points that each have their own kind of action. And then there's some extra ones thrown in just to, complicate things a little bit more. But essentially, these points have particular functions. And again, a physical functionality to them, a mental and emotional functionality, and a spiritual functionality, depending on what we're trying to do. So essentially, for the most part, your body will be doing the work during an acupuncture session. The acupuncturist is just essentially acting like a facilitator throughout this process. So we're passing the body a message. The needle is acting as a flag, a message, whatever you want to call it, and basically going, hey, we're not doing things particularly well right now. There's some things that could be operating a little bit better. Do a little bit less of that, do a little bit more of that. We need to kind of change the dynamics of what's happening here. So your body uptakes that particular message and then basically moves through the process of doing that. So this is why it can be a little bit like gym. So you don't go to gym and expect to be physically fit or have big muscles after one gym session, right? It's a cumulative process. So basically, the more you reinforce the message to the body, the more it knows what to do with that, and the more it understands. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm used to doing it this particular way, but we need to do something a little bit different. And that's also how you kind of get to a point as well where eventually you hope that the person will be a little bit more centered, so that, when they do come in and they're feeling a little bit off, that it's much easier to bring them back to their state, being centered. It's easier for
Equilibrium, yeah, centered, yeah, all of that stuff. It's okay.
yeah.
Nice. And so again, of course, I know that you help a lot of, like I said, a wide range of people in the queer community. Can you talk to us about people who are maybe going through, like, people who are, going through gender affirming surgery or hormone replacement therapy or going through the, transition? How does Chinese medicine and acupuncture support people who are like actually down that path or wanting to, think about going down that path?
Totally. Yeah, there's a lot. I'm really excited about the potential for Chinese medicine in this area, because I think that it can actually offer a lot, particularly with the hormone replacement therapy sort of area, because I think unfortunately in a lot of cases, hormonal replacement therapy is a wonderful thing for trans people. Obviously very, very necessary. But unfortunately, you get side effects from hormone replacement therapy. And in a lot of cases, when you have side effects from a particular medication or whatever, the option usually is that we take you off it and we try you on something else, right? And obviously, for a lot of trans people, that's not an option. Like, you can't take them off hormone replacement therapy. It's not an option. So in a lot of cases, they can really suffer with some of the side effects. So from our perspective, the way we kind of look at it is, we obviously view medications as neither inherently good or bad. So, and this is with anything that you're putting into your body, because the way that Chinese medicine, any external thing that you're putting into your body automatically is going to have a effect on the body in some way. And when we look at hormone replacement therapy, we look at estrogen as a very cold substance in the body. Estrogen inherently is it's very cold in the body, so it's very yin. So when people start taking estrogen, you start to see an impact on warmer metabolic processes from our perspective. So the side effects that you commonly see with estrogen therapy are, things like weight gain, bloating, can be digestive dysfunction, brain fog. We look at all of these sort of processes essentially as there being too much cold in the body as a result of the estrogen. So we obviously can't remove the cause of that. So it's how do we actually offset that? So how do we help someone manage the side effects that are occurring from the hormone replacement therapy? And it's obviously the same thing with testosterone, and just in a different form. So testosterone we look at as very hot in the body. So it tends to cause a lot of what we say is excessive heat symptoms in the body. So we see a lot of the time acne flaring up, skin disorders, headaches, these sorts of things that we would, in Chinese medicine, identify as heat syndromes occurring within the body. So yeah, we look at it in the way of going, okay, we need to be able to support the person in a way that we can help offset the side effects, but at the same time, we're not doing anything that's going to contradict or try and change the therapy that they're on. So obviously that they can, they can have the body that they feel that they want and deserve. And it's the same with sort of the surgical aspect. So I see a few trans clients that have had gender affirming surgeries, and we're working a lot with the remaining scar tissue that's occurring. So in Chinese medicine, we can help with the acupuncture to reduce the appearance of the scarring.
Gotcha.
With the acupuncture, so we can actually, if you're looking at it purely from an aesthetic or cosmetic kind of perspective, we can try and actually help to break down some of the scar tissue, reduce the overall look or intensity of the scarring. But also we look at it as if there is scar tissue present, a lot of the time it causes issues with that natural flow of those particular meridians, depending on the areas that it's sort of running through. So you might get different symptoms depending. So, scar tissue around the chest area is going to have a different effect to scar tissue around the genitals, for example. But yeah, so we try and basically help to get the flow of those particular meridians in that area a little bit more free flowing, as we would say. So where we see stagnation in meridians and a lack of kind of flow, a lot of the time there's a lot of pain for people. And this is not necessarily just with scarring, this is with pain in general, which is, I mean, that's a whole nother broader topic as well, because I see that a lot with trans patients who are chest binding, or if they're tucking or doing those sorts of things as well. That can also cause a similar effect on the body as well.
Yeah.
So it's how do we basically help, restore flow within that area so it's a little bit more comfortable for them.
Yeah. I mean, that all makes a lot of sense as to why these things would be occurring in the body when you're going through these changes, when you talk about the yin, the yang, the hot, the cold, and how, as you said, tapping in and connecting those meridians or having them flow better allows the body to do its job, and I guess get back into a better flow of energy, so that the person who I guess is going through the transition can actually probably feel the way that they want to feel within their body, especially after they've transitioned, they can actually start to feel like the person that they feel they are. Is that
Exactly right?
helps them do that?
Yeah. So we would say it's helping them to basically align. In Chinese medicine, we would call it dantian, or the three.
Body, the mind, the spirit all together, kind of, right?
Exactly. So yeah, we say spirit, emotion, and essence, or physicality, which we would, if you're looking specifically at gender, we would say alignment of gender identity, gender expression, and the actual biological body that you were born with.
Yeah, yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah. Well, I mean, we shared so much today, Matthew, and I'd love to to ask you, is there anything that we kind of haven't covered as a kind of, I mean, that's a broad question again, because there'd be so in the context of what we've been discussing today relating to helping people in the queer community. Is there anything maybe some common emotional and mental stresses that you would say, if you're experiencing this, maybe have a look into acupuncture or Chinese medicine as a possible way to help, instead of jumping in and going straight to maybe a doctor and being on a medication? Because we all know that that's probably the most common thing that people do, but again, not necessarily the best. And again, we're not judging what is right for every single person, but again, giving them an understanding of if you're experiencing some of these issues, what can Chinese medicine or acupuncture really help queer people with?
This is where I wish pretty much everyone would seek out a Chinese medicine practitioner or acupuncturist, purely because there's not much we can't actually help out with in that respect. So that's where I think it has a lot to offer the queer community, because it's I really I see a lot of people from very different walks of life who their same shared experiences, as queer people, but their health experiences are very different. And what they're trying to achieve within their health is very different. So, as I mentioned, I see a lot of trans people do assist them with their hormone replacement therapy in terms of side effects and helping them through that transition. In terms of after their surgeries, I see a lot of stress and anxiety, insomnia and lack of sleep. See a lot of digestive disorders as well. I see a lot of what I would call the sexual dysfunction disorders. So assisting people around sexual addiction.
Or struggling with other addictions as well, or substance abuse, because again, that's quite common in the queer community as well. You can help people with that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So substance abuse, porn addiction, all of those sorts of things as well as the actual physical sexual dysfunctions as well. So premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, all of those sort of fun things. And also I've got clients as well. So I've got a lesbian couple, for example, at the moment who are moving through an IVF process to try and conceive. So we're helping the carrying partner in terms of her body and helping her prep to carry this pregnancy and making sure that that's a good environment for the pregnancy. So there's a very, very wide range of things that I see and I believe that can assist the queer community.
Beautiful. I love that. It's pretty much, yeah, anything that you can think of, you can probably have some sort of solution or aid to support with. So if people are out there, Matthew, and they want to get in contact with you, or, if they're in the Melbourne area and maybe they want to come and see you, maybe
Yeah.
share some information about how they can contact you.
Yeah, absolutely. Easiest way to get in touch with me would be Instagram. So I'm based in St Kilda, so just out of inner city Melbourne. So we've got a clinic there, which is called Zhong Centre, which is ZHONG, and then Centre. So you can find us on Instagram at Zhong Centre. You can also find my Instagram, which is dr.matt.young, so MATTYOUNG. Those are probably the best ways to get in touch with me.
I'll link those in the comments below so that anyone who's actually listening, you don't have to remember that. Just go to the comment section and you'll be able to link straight to you. And if people have got some questions about, their health, either you can answer them or support them by, sending them in the right direction, I bet.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, jumping on and sharing your wisdom, your Chinese wisdom, your Chinese medicine wisdom with us in the queer community, because I believe that, we have to look at our lives holistically. Again, it's not just, okay, I've got a problem with my knee, I need to go see XYZ and get it solved, because as you said, sometimes looking back, these things can relate to something else, an emotional thing that's happened in this part of your life could be affecting the reason why you're struggling here. So again, I love the whole concept when it comes to Chinese medicine and looking at it holistically, because I believe as queer people, we really need to be looking at our life holistically if we really want to be getting the happiness, the success, the health, the wealth, all in all areas of our life.
Yeah, fantastic.
Well, again, thank you for coming on. And for everyone else, if you've got questions, you've got comments, you've got shares, you know how to contact me. I love hearing from you each and every week. And you know where to contact me across all social media. It's Christiana Green. And I'll be back next week with a brand new episode of the Queer Quest podcast. But until then, always remember that you've got this and I've got you. Bye for now.